Coming up on Arirang News, South Korean President Moon Jae-in is in Spain, the third stop on his diplomatic trip to Europe. He's greeted by the Spanish King and Queen, and while there, will be looking to step up cooperation on the pandemic and climate change. South Korea launches a nationwide retail campaign. It's called the Donghaeng Sale, and there are some bargains online and in person that the organizers hope will help boost the economy. And the Korean unit of eBay reportedly has a likely buyer. Reports say it's going to sell for about $3.6 billion to retailer Shinsegae and internet giant Naver. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. We begin with President Moon's trip to Europe. The South Korean leader is now in Spain for a state visit, the final stop on his trip that has already taken him to the UK and Austria. In Madrid Tuesday, he met the King and Queen of Spain, as well as the city's mayor. Yoon Jung-min reports.
Making the first state visit to Spain by a foreign leader since the pandemic began, President Moon Jae-in visited Madrid City Hall, kicking off his three-day itinerary in the country. While highly appreciative of South Korea's ambitious goal for a transition to a green economy, the mayor of Madrid said Spain learned a lot from Korea about how to tackle COVID-19.
We have learned from you that the best fight against the virus includes the government's prompt response, citizens' exemplary participation, science, and proper intervention.
The mayor presented Moon with a golden key, a symbol of further expanding exchanges between the two countries.
이 행운의 열쇠가 나 개인뿐 아니라 대한민국과 한반도에 큰 행운을 가져다 줄 것으로 믿습니다. 이 열쇠로 코로나 극복의 문을 열겠습니다.
Upon arrival, Moon and the First Lady were received with military honors at the Royal Palace in Madrid by Spain's King Felipe VI and the Queen. The first couple were also welcomed with a royal banquet at the palace. During the banquet, Moon mentioned the friendship between the two countries during the pandemic while proposing that they work together on the fourth industrial revolution and green growth. Also during his visit, the South Korean president is set to meet with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez to discuss the tackling of the COVID-19 pandemic and economic cooperation. Moon will also visit the Senate and attend a business forum in Barcelona. He is the first South Korean president to visit Spain in 14 years. The Spanish King and Queen last visited South Korea in 2019. The trip marks over 70 years of diplomatic relations between Seoul and Madrid, expanding their ties in various sectors, including economy and culture. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And before President Moon arrived in Spain, he was in Austria for a state visit. During his time there, he praised Austria's accomplishments in politics, science, literature, and the arts. Hong Yu has more.
Finishing his state visit to Austria on Tuesday, President Moon Jae-in took to social media to say that Austria has achieved a stable political structure with a grand coalition that's backed by a strong ideology. He added such power contributes to world peace, not to mention the numerous international organizations located in Vienna. President Moon looked back at Austria's history of overcoming division 10 years after World War II. He also highly evaluated Austria's accomplishments in politics, science, literature, and the arts. President Moon said it's now South Korea's time to become a leading country, bring peace to the Korean peninsula, and mark a new start in world history. Before leaving Austria, President Moon Jae-in and First Lady Kim Jong-suk visited the Stift-Heiligenkreuz, accompanied by the Austrian President Alexander Van der Bellen and his wife. Touring the second oldest Cistercian monastery in the world, President Moon said he hopes Pope Francis visits North Korea soon. President Moon told Abbot Maximilian Heim about his trip to the Vatican in 2018, and when he suggested that Pope Francis travel to the north. At the time, the Pope agreed and expressed a willingness to try and become the driving force for peace on the peninsula. President Moon asked the abbot to pray for humanity as it endures the pandemic so it can be overcome through cooperation and love. This was the first state visit by a South Korean leader to Austria in 129 years after the two countries first forged diplomatic ties. Now that South Korea and Austria have upgraded their relations to a strategic partnership through the state visit, President Moon hopes it's an opportunity for both countries to grow by fusing Austria's advanced technology with South Korea's commercialization know-how. President Moon's third and final stop in Europe is Spain. He returns to Seoul this Friday. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea reported almost 550 new coronavirus cases on Wednesday, topping 500 for the first time in a few days. But there's also good news. Korea's taken delivery of more doses of the Pfizer vaccine, and the government's due to announce its vaccination plans for the third quarter. Kim Yeon-sung reports.
A fresh batch of Pfizer vaccines touched down in South Korea. 650,000 additional doses arrived Wednesday morning at Incheon International Airport. South Korea has now brought in 5.7 million Pfizer doses, about 1 million doses shy of the 7 million shots due by the end of June. This comes as South Korea reached its goal of vaccinating more than 13 million people with at least one shot, 2 weeks earlier than planned. Eyes are now on what happens next.
We will announce our vaccination plans for the third quarter on Thursday. There's some uncertainty in terms of vaccine supply and demand, since it's a global pandemic. But we will thoroughly plan and execute our goal of herd immunity and return to normal life as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, South Korea on Wednesday confirmed 545 new COVID-19 infections, rebounding to over 500 cases for the first time in 4 days, and up more than 170 cases from the previous day.
We have confirmation that even if infections spread, local governments can manage it by adjusting social distancing measures to suit their particular situation.
South Korean health authorities will take into account recent cases and inoculation numbers before they announce on Sunday the government's social distancing measures for July. Kim Yeon-sung, Arirang News.
Reports say there's a likely winner in bidding to buy out eBay Korea, which runs the country's two biggest e-commerce sites, Gmarket and Auction. Industry sources say the buyers are likely to be retailer Shinsegae Group and e-platform Naver, which formed an e-commerce partnership together earlier this year. The sources say eBay will sell around 80% of its South Korean business to these two firms for about $3.6 billion. None of the companies reportedly involved in the deal, though, have made any official announcement. But if it goes through, the deal will shake up the country's e-commerce market by giving Shinsegae and Naver a market share of almost 33%, putting their rival Coupang in a distant second at 13%. South Korea's cryptocurrency exchanges are getting ready for closer scrutiny under new regulations to take effect in September. Ahead of that, the exchanges are ditching some coins deemed too risky to pass muster. The prices of all these coins have plunged. Kim Sung-min reports.
In an effort to keep up with the government's regulations on the cryptocurrency market, South Korean exchanges are increasingly weeding out their trading lists. They're temporarily halting or even completely ending the trading of certain high-risk minor coins. As of Wednesday, 11 out of the 20 exchanges that have received the Information Security Management System certificate needed to be allowed to operate have either halted trading of some coins or released a list of coins that customers should be cautious of. Leading the trend is Korea's gov't, which has decided to delist 5 coins, Paycoin, Maro, Observer, Solvecare, and Quiztalk from the exchange from Friday noon, while putting 25 coins on its warning list. While suspending trading of coins is quite common, industry watchers assume that the current trend comes in order to meet conditions for the government's regulatory approval. Last month, the government officially designated the Financial Services Commission as the agency responsible for supervising and regulating the cryptocurrency market. Now, to operate as a legal trading platform, exchanges in Korea are required by September 24th to open real-name bank accounts for customers by partnering with local banks. The exchange's moves to comply with these regulations, however, has created a market frenzy. The prices of all 5 coins that gov't announced it will hold trading saw a sharp drop, Quiztalk falling almost 68%. Experts warn that this could cause confusion in the market as such actions are taken based on the exchange's own standards, especially when the same coins can still be traded on other exchanges. The Financial Supervisory Service on Monday emailed the exchanges asking them to provide a list of the coins being halted or put on a warning list and could strengthen regulations even further. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
More support could be on the way from the government for South Korea's small businesses and consumers. At the National Assembly on Wednesday, the chairman of the ruling Democratic Party, Representative Song Young-gil, proposed drawing up another extra budget to help those affected by the economic fallout of the pandemic. Speaking in a plenary session, he said this should include cashback rewards for credit card spending, financial aid for small businesses, and relief payments for all citizens. The cashback rewards would give some money back to the cardholder if they spend more in the third quarter than they did in the second. If you're in Korea or planning to come here this summer, you'll soon have a chance at some shopping bargains. Next week is the start of the Korea Donghaeng Sale, a retail campaign aimed at boosting consumer spending to help the economy recover. So In-kyung reports.
South Korea is to hold a nationwide sale campaign next Thursday, dubbed the Korea Donghaeng Sale. The retail campaign, which is named after the Korean word for going along together, would take place both online and in stores and markets across the country with the aim of boosting consumption and revitalizing the economy. The Ministry of SMEs and Startups said on Wednesday that it's holding the 18-day sales event to help SMEs and small merchants attract customers and spur local consumption.
Domestic demand and consumer sentiment have been recovering amid a rise in the vaccination rate. We hope to see the local economy become active again through the Donghaeng Sale.
Online shopping malls are selling high-rated products from SMEs and small merchants at up to a 70% discount. Through TV home shopping, consumers will benefit from special offers on 441 products. And mobile shopping apps also provide promotions for high-rated products for SMEs and small merchants. When it comes to offline channels, department stores will offer up to 50% discounts on brands from SMEs and on some summer fashion items. At traditional marketplaces, consumers can get 10% of all the money they spend back in the form of local gift certificates. And major sport markets are offering up to 50% off popular foods and up to 40% off agricultural and livestock products. The ministry is planning to hold a virtual opening ceremony of the nationwide campaign at Sewon Arcade in Jong-un, Seoul next Thursday. 서은경, Arirang News.
Hopes are high for a return to overseas travel as the global vaccination campaign picks up speed and countries loosen their border restrictions. Some countries have set up systems directly with each other, with systems in place for so-called travel bubbles. Last week, South Korea said it's looking at setting up travel bubbles of its own. For more on this, we have our Min Soo-kyun joining us today in the studio. Soo-kyun, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, it's true. A lot of us are looking forward to being able to travel again, and the government, I have to say, has gotten my hopes up. You've been looking into this issue in some detail. So tell us, what is a travel bubble and what is South Korea planning in this regard?
Well, a travel bubble is an exclusive travel partnership that allows people to travel freely without undergoing quarantine. The deal is usually between two or more countries that have achieved considerable success in containing and fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. South Korea is planning to create its travel bubble agreement with a few countries as early as next month. Countries top on the list include Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand, and the U.S. territories of Guam and Saipan, which are considered to be relatively safe to travel. For now, only group tours will be permitted for those fully vaccinated, and travel will be restricted to direct flights.
Travelers must stay in the travel bubble country for 14 days prior to departure. They must take a direct flight to enter the country and upon arrival must present their vaccination certificate. Only those who test negative after a PCR test will then be exempt from quarantine.
Further details of the plan, such as specific dates, quarantine guidelines, and proof of vaccination will be made in the coming weeks.
Well, Soo-kyun, a big point that you made just now, if anybody missed it, was that the travel bubble would only work for those who are going on group tours or tour packages together with lots of people going perhaps to Southeast Asia or something. But many of us want to travel independently or alone. So what about those of us who want to do that?
Well, for those who would like to travel, like there are many countries that actually accept or allow fully vaccinated people to enter without a 14-day quarantine upon their arrival. These include Guam and Saipan, two most popular tourist destinations for South Koreans. Jeju Air has already resumed its flights to Saipan this month, and Asiana Airlines also plans to start its service for the resort island from July. Korean Air also opened tickets for Guam set to leave this November, while T-Way and Air Seoul plan to start flight services for Guam this summer. Over in Europe, Switzerland, Spain, and France are also welcoming vaccinated travelers. Good news is that those vaccinated in Korea won't need to quarantine when returning from their trip. But one thing to be careful, though, is that each country has slightly different COVID-19 protocols for incoming travelers. Some countries only grant quarantine-free entry for certain types of COVID-19 vaccines. So, for example, Guam only recognizes US FDA-approved COVID-19 vaccines such as Moderna, Pfizer, or Johnson & Johnson. Those who have received AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine will have to quarantine. So you do have to look into the specific details before traveling.
Okay, so make sure to check what type of vaccine you've got, make sure what the rules are in Europe or Asia, whatever country you're going to. But now, it's been a tough time the past year and 4 months or so for the international airline industry. They've had to cut down so many flights, and it's also been tough for their staff. And the same goes for these mom and pop travel agencies. There's a lot of those in Korea. But now with the travel bubbles and other measures being taken, are they getting back on their feet?
Well, not just yet. The travel agencies and airline industries are still crippled by the pandemic. Many staff are still on unpaid leave as profits have yet to jump back to pre-pandemic levels. At the moment, they're gearing up to get their business running back again. Take a listen.
There are not many reservations for overseas travel yet, but there are more inquiries compared to the past. Right now, we're more focused on getting ready to offer safe travel packages for overseas tours.
Insiders agree that it will take a while for them to fully recover, but they say the announcement of a travel bubble last week brought great hope.
With the latest travel bubble announcement, it feels like we can finally see the end of the tunnel. The hardest part is going through a tunnel where you don't know when it's going to end. But now that we know where that is, we just need to bear it for a few more months.
Well, it's well said by the person you interviewed there, Soo-kyun, just a few more months. Some of us might say, well, we've been hearing that for quite a long time now, but it does seem like there is light at the end of the tunnel. When do you see, realistically, travel getting back to what we would consider normal?
Well, perhaps the Korean Thanksgiving Chuseok holiday will look more like pre-COVID-19 times. That's because the government aims to vaccinate about 70% of the country's total population by September. This year's Chuseok is set to run from September 20th to the 22nd, and including the weekends, it will be a 5-day holiday for all. So this is when the airline and travel industries expect to see an actual uptick in booking rates.
By the time we get to the Chuseok holiday, when most of the population has been fully vaccinated, we expect demand for overseas travel to be higher. It could be the start of a return to normal travel.
Well, Soo-kyun, on the expectation that that is what is ahead of us, a return to normal travel, one thing we've seen is a big spike in the price of airline stocks. Tell us about that, and travel-related stocks.
Absolutely. So South Korea's airline stocks have been rising significantly in line with the country's COVID-19 vaccine rollouts and high hopes for overseas travels. On the day of the travel bubble announcement, shares of Korean Air closed 4% higher at over $30, and its parent int'l rose 4% at about $67. Low-cost carriers saw their stocks jump on the same day, with Jeju Air up almost 6%, Jin Air 5%, and T Air 19%. Local travel stocks were also up for the same reason. Some analysts even expect the stocks to go higher in the second half of this year.
The pent-up demand in travel means the recovery is expected to continue throughout 2023. The recovery cycle will be quite similar to that of the Lehman Brothers financial crisis that went from 2008 to 2010. The only difference is that the gains will be higher since economic fallout from the pandemic was worse.
Well, all around, a fairly optimistic outlook, I think, on this front. I hope we can say that for the industries, for the people working in these industries, and for all of us who would like to travel as we used to do. Thanks so much for your report today, Soo-kyun.
Thank you.
North Korea's ruling party is holding a series of meetings this week to discuss what the regime's calling the current international situation, as well as food shortages, the pandemic, and potential natural disasters. Experts say the regime could be about to announce also new policies towards Seoul and Washington. Kim Da-mi reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is presiding over a Workers' Party meeting to discuss ways to deal with the, quote, current international situation, which might include the regime's policy towards Seoul and Washington.
Messages toward the U.S. rather than South Korea are expected to come because the core of the North's situation is Washington's movement. The North will probably speak in light of last month's South Korea-U.S. summit.
But the expert added the tone might be softer than usual, given that internal affairs like improving people's lives are Kim Jong-un's priority right now.
Natural disasters last year severely affected the North's agriculture, leading to food shortages. So the regime's agricultural issues are top of the agenda because of the need to feed people.
Plus, with the pandemic expected to linger, the North is likely to be less active toward talks with Washington. Tuesday's meeting also gave a positive evaluation of the current state of the regime's economy, following the leader's ambitious new 5-year economic plan unveiled in January. Pyongyang state media said Tuesday's meeting is still ongoing. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin are due to meet in the coming hours in Geneva. U.S. officials say that meeting will probably last at least 4 hours. Media outlets speculate that their discussions will likely include the contentious issues of ransomware attacks and human rights, but also other areas of potential cooperation. Kim Hyo-sun has more.
The most eagerly awaited event of President Biden's trip to Europe, his first face-to-face summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin, is expected to last 4 to 5 hours, perhaps even longer. Citing government officials, U.S. media outlets say Wednesday's summit in Geneva is beginning to take shape. They say Putin is expected to arrive first, and both leaders will be greeted by their Swiss counterparts. 4 participants will be at the first session: Biden, Putin, as well as the top diplomats of both countries, Antony Blinken and Sergei Lavrov. This will be followed by an expanded summit and separate press conferences. The two leaders are not expected to share a meal. Elaborating that there are many issues on the table for talks, the media outlets say they'll likely include ransomware attacks, human rights, and areas of potential cooperation. 2 days before his meeting with Putin, Biden described Putin as a, quote, worthy adversary, highlighting that there are clearly areas for bilateral cooperation.
I'm going to make clear to President Putin that there are areas where we can cooperate if he chooses. And if he chooses not to cooperate and acts in a way that he has in the past relative to cybersecurity and some other activities, then we will respond.
In the lead up to the summit, President Biden has been reviewing materials and documents while engaging with numerous advisors. Kim Hyo-san, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.